Hello everybody, welcome back to my lab. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about soldering breakout boards. Now, breakout boards are great. They're the perfect way to get into some new technology. And today we have the Axe-1 tiny FPGA. And this is something that was brought to my attention a little while ago. I'm very excited about getting into it. But there's a couple of little tricks that I want to show you about soldering specifically today. And this is a trap for some newer people that uh, maybe you're not used to soldering. And so hopefully that you find this useful and entertaining. And no further ado, let's get into our soldering. Okay, so as you can see here, we have our Axe-1 tiny FPGA, and I have a breadboard. And one of the first things that we should talk about is that this board does not come with headers, and so we're going to need to solder some headers in. And the best way to buy headers is obviously these giant strips, and then you can just use your side cutters to cut them off. If you try to just jam them in willy-nilly and kind of hold it and grab your soldering iron and go away at it, there's a couple problems. The first one is you're probably going to burn your finger. Not the end of the world. You'll get used to that after a decade or two. But the odds of you getting it straight are almost impossible. And the other thing is that you want to make sure that you definitely have the correct pitch so that you can put it into a breadboard. And so what I've done here is I have an old breadboard that I don't really care too awfully much about, but I am still going to be careful with it. And I'm going to solder in these headers. And so I've put my header blocks into the breadboard, and as you can see, I can simply just drop this on, easy enough. My soldering iron's already warmed up. I'll grab some solder here. I'll grab my light solder. This is lead free, of course. I'm going to do you a favor and not turn on the fume extractor because it's noisy and bothersome. And yeah, so I'm going to simply tack a couple corners on this. And so I don't need to get too awfully crazy. I'll just quickly on and off. Okay. Here I'll grab the ground pin. Again, just solder it in real quick. I'll grab the 3.3 in this corner. And finally over here to this pin. And I'm not too awfully worried about having perfect joints at this point, because all I'm really aiming for is to be able to get these pins so that they are actually square and correct. Now that that's on its own, I can actually go ahead and solder the rest of the pins without fear of damaging my breadboard. So here we are. I'll just put this under the microscope. Don't have my reading glasses on. And so when I'm soldering here, I'm looking for proper flow. You can see that, yes, I wet the iron with the solder, but I'm specifically looking for the heat to travel all the way across. Remember that the solder will follow well, not just the solder, the components, the solder, everything will follow the heat. So it wants to try to wick up onto the iron. So it actually needs to be properly wetted to get all the way around. And and you can see that the flux from my solder, it's getting around, but we can tidy that up after. We're not too awfully concerned about that. Come on now. and then that original joint will clean that up. Make sure that it is fully wetted. There we go, perfect. It freeze, and we can come back and touch this guy up. Do the other side. Start with pin 22 here. And we definitely don't want to stay on it too long that we're going to damage the header either. For those that are just learning to solder, be aware that too much heat or for too long, and you can definitely start to lift traces, which is always lots of fun trying to fix that, especially when you're new. It's not even fun after you've done it a few thousand times. And yes, lifting traces kind of comes with the territory. You hopefully don't do it as much when you get a little bit more experience, but the truth is that sometimes boards are damaged to the point where you can't do much about it. Okay, so this second header here is for the programmer. Okay, so here's the programmer. And come here. And so we're not too awfully concerned about this. I did pick some longer headers just because of the female connector here. I wanted to be able to jam in. And so I'm also going to have it protrude out the top. Okay. And so this time we don't have to worry about the pitch between them. So I will simply just give one pin here a little tack into the screen, and it sticks a little bit further down the bottom than I'd like, but that's okay. And I'll just check, and sure enough, it is reasonably perpendicular to the board, and so we'll call that good enough. And I will solder the rest of these connections. Come on now. And you can see just that little bit of time on here, and those headers are starting to soften up, and they're starting to move around a little bit. So we want to be careful. We want to be quick about this. And this is a typical cold solder joint. That's perfect. I love it when I get to see that. So you can see there's lots of solder on here, but it's not actually down onto the pad. So we want to make sure that we fix that. And there we go. That's flowed down there nicely. The gold flash is always really nice for these. There we go. A little bit more just because. And we can double check that our header actually fits together. So ground to ground, good. And there we go. All right. So that pretty much wraps that up. This will be ready to power up now, and I could actually start programming that. That'll maybe be a future video. So make sure that you definitely like it if you enjoy this video, and please subscribe so that you can experience more of these videos if you wish. All right, thanks, and have a great day.